Hi, my name is Bianca,
I'm Dylan.
and today we're going to be talking about ChatGPT and genetic modification. So, I'm going to explain a little bit what we'll be talking about today in our agenda. So, we will be talking about some of the prompts that we gave ChatGPT, and we will also provide the summary of its responses. And we will also show the follow-up questions, some of them that we gave ChatGPT after prompting them. And then we will provide a quick analysis on whether we think the responses are incoherent or illogical, or if they maintain soundness and logical. So we'll give our input on that, and then we'll give a brief conclusion. But yeah, so we'll begin with our first prompt that we went to. So I prompted ChatGPT, in what cases should people implement genetic modification? But, in parentheses, determining traits of your future child, if any. And ChatGPT summarized, in a summary, basically said that genetic modification should only be used to prevent serious diseases, but it shouldn't be used for like risky enhancements. And essentially, I think this shows that like ChatGPT knows that using it for like only positive results that benefit like suffering or lower suffering, I think it shows that ChatGPT is aware of that and that ChatGPT is not going to tell you to use it for any reason. So I think in a sense that maintains logic and soundness. And so I gave a little follow-up question. I gave two, but I have one listed on the side. One is what positive impacts could using it only to prevent serious life-threatening diseases have? And ChatGPT said only in preventing hereditary diseases via genetic modification reduces suffering, improves quality, eases burden, and advances understanding. So once again, it kind of shows how ChatGPT is aware that genetic modification could have serious risks if it's not used correctly. But I think overall, we see that ChatGPT wants people to implement it only for reducing, serious diseases and reducing suffering. So that means that these responses are not incoherent, but we'll talk a little bit more about the analysis. But we'll move on to prompt number two now. Awesome. And then Dylan, you can take this one.
Right on. So for problem number two, this is what I asked ChatGPT. I asked why people should avoid genetic modification in determining the traits of their future child. In summary, Chad gave us an answer saying that genetic trait selection risks inequality, reduces diversity, endangers future health, and pressures children to meet shifting norms. Um, Kind of to follow up that first slide that we just talked about with the first prompt. ChatGPT, it seems like it's very aware of the fact that it is ethically wrong. It's kind of, in a way, taking away the special parts of life, all the special things that you're born with that God gives you. It's, in a way, taking that all away, and it reduces all of the cool parts of life, like the diversity, what makes us all different. I think that's super important to have. The follow-up questions that I gave Chat: how ethical would it be to use genetic modification for children from a utilitarian and categorical imperative point of view? Is it ethical to use uncertain genetic modification to prevent hereditary disease? Oh, whoops, here we go. In summary, Chat answered pretty similarly to the other prompts, keeping its same stance that genetic modification's ethics are uncertain, balancing potential benefits against its significance moral risks. Um, Same deal here, just kind of highlighting the fact that it is risky and it is morally wrong, especially for someone that per se is faith-based. Like, this is something that has a lot of downside to it. Sure, there are upside for certain situations where you could be, for example, saving the child's life from a hereditary disease or something that the parents have. But at the end of the day, we still are unaware of what is possible in the future with making these modifications to a child.
Awesome. So, kind of moving on that point, we want to analyze these ethical and moral considerations that Chat GPT has, given us with their responses. So I think that we both think that these responses are coherent. They are logically consistent and they don't contradict each other. So even though ChatGPT doesn't fully, I guess, um, not believe in using genetic modification, it still believes in using it only to reduce suffering and to save like new life, which I think Dylan talked about. So I think even though it doesn't tell people to not use it, I think it provides non-contradictory claims to support reasons why people should use it just for like certain cases where it's really needed. So I think that makes it logically consistent, as I mentioned, and super coherent because Dylan and I can understand why it's saying these things. And so as, humans, we can understand that like it's coherent to us. And I think um, ChatGPT correctly limits acceptable genetic modification. So obviously, we don't have a full picture of what genetic modification will look like in the future, but as of right now, taking away, diversity is a bad thing. Is objectively a bad thing because without having genetic diversity, not only like do you miss out on those special parts of your life, but you risk, more chances of getting diseases because if everyone has the same, DNA structure, then nobody is going to survive these different types of, environments, or there's just going to be limited experiences and limited types of people. So it really does affect biology as a whole. So I think that ChatGPT does do a good job of just limiting it. And I don't think that these responses are incorrect or illogical. I think they're super brief and they're not extremely comprehensive. But as I mentioned, like even though they are comprehensive, they maintain soundness and they are super coherent and are very logical. And ChatGPT presents a very clear, ethically aligned framework without internal conflict. And I think that, like we mentioned, these answers acknowledge the uncertainties of genetic modification as a whole, but it also balances these risks and benefits of using it in special cases.
And then to continue the analysis about the other prompts, um, same thing. We discovered that the responses were coherent, ethically consistent, and free of contradictions. Um, each answer distinguishes clearly between enhancement and disease prevention, aligns utilitarian and Kantian reasoning appropriately. So, to just kind of expand on that, like ChatGPT kept the same stance about, it's ethically incorrect to do these things unless there is a really important situation where they need to use this to save a life. I'm sure there's so many examples out there of things where, it's kind of like playing devil's advocate where, like, but what if this? And ChatGPT keeps the same opinion about these certain situations where you should use something like this. Um, to just continue on the analysis, chat acknowledges scientific uncertainty without overstating conclusions. They're necessarily concise, not so exhaustive, and they remain logically sound and accurate within the word limits. So, like we were saying, some of the words sound a little, or the answers sound a little incomplete in a way. But I do think that's just completely because of the word limit we put on chat to answer these prompts that we gave him. But otherwise, I think they're all correct, they're consistent, and they're not incomplete, and they're not illogical. Chat does a good job of keeping the same opinion throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, so just to summarize, we believe that ChatGPT gave us a very clear explanation of its stance on the situation and subject, and that it had some valid points to back up in its argument. And we also discovered that the responses were very coherent, they were ethically consistent, and they did not contradict one another. And so I think as a group, we agree with the responses ChatGPT has given us about our topic. And yeah, as we said, it just maintains soundness and logic throughout its responses. And so I hope that this serves as a model for us to maybe better use AI in the future with situations and topics because it has proven that it doesn't advocate for this necessarily, but only in the slightest when it needs to be implemented. And like Dylan said, for saving life. So I think that gives us hope on maybe how AI um, believes in a sense, or the model that AI uses. So I think that is reassuring.